Hello everyone, welcome to Red Summer Holdings, a real estate partnership comprising of 8 owners, Tochi, myself Zoe, Ramad, Charles, Ikechi, Chima, Innocent, and IK. Here we discuss the evolution of our business, which shows you how group economics can be successful in regards to real estate. If you believe there is value in this information, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. With that being said, let's get to the content you've all been waiting for.
So these are like just a rough look at the steps, the steps of buying the property. And so the first thing I did was I used Bigger Pockets to identify an agent. By saying that, I mean I reached out to people that have recently invested in the area and have multiple investments in the area, and asked them, hey, who did you work with on the ground? And when I say people, I mean people that don't live in Cleveland. So like I talked to a guy that lives in New York. I talked to a guy that lives in Oakland, and they both have multiple properties in the Cleveland area. And I asked them, hey, who did you use as your boots on the ground agent to go through the process? And they both actually said the same person. So I figure, okay, I got two completely completely different opinions, and they led me to the same place. And so with that being the case, I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm looking to invest in Cleveland. I'd like to get on the phone with you and discuss exactly what I'm looking for. And that's what I did. And that's where I got her opinions on, different markets and what I could find and what I can expect. And, she basically answered all of the questions that you would ask somebody that is a quote unquote expert in the area. And after that, she gave me access to the local MLS, and that allowed me to, along with Redfin, I mean, I already had a bunch of properties on Redfin I was looking at, but I could then, favorite those properties on the MLS and ask her specific questions about the areas the properties were in, the condition they were in, and find out if she had any extra information that wasn't listed on, the online sites like Redfin or Zillow or anything like that. And after doing that for a few weeks, I identified the property that I just showed you guys that I wanted to purchase, and told her. Because she also invests in the area, she told me about that specific area and what I could expect, and the type of area it is. And we went on Google Maps and looked at the surrounding area and all that sort of stuff, just to go through it again in a much more micro way, as opposed to looking at the whole city. And so we did that. And after I let her know that I was interested in it, she let me know that, like I said before, if you don't submit an offer with some sort of qualification, then the likelihood of that getting accepted is slim to none. So that's when I reached out to lenders. Like I said, one local lender and then one national. I'm ended up going with the national, because the local would have been onerous in terms of getting through the process, and the national, I just worked with him last month to refinance the property, so we basically know each other. His office is actually like 5 minutes away from my apartment here in San Diego, so building a relationship with him could be useful, in that he supplied me with that proof of funds letter in 24 hours. And that pre-qualification could have took me, weeks to get with somebody that I hadn't just recently done business with. So that's just another thing, like in real estate, you want to find somebody that's good at what they do and just continue to work with them, because the time it saves you from, meeting new people, basically underwriting their skills, and having to build a trusting relationship, as opposed to working ones you already have, is time that someone else isn't wasting and time someone else is using to get a deal. So I decided, okay, let me just make it easy myself and work with him. So I submitted the letter with my offer. The offer was accepted in like 48 hours. And right then is when I decided that I needed to reach out to a property manager, because I'd like to get that process started while under contract, so that, day one, we can get him the keys and we can get started, especially with this project, because there's an empty unit. And from the day, the ink is dry, that empty unit is now my responsibility. So I want to get that filled as quickly as possible. And also I reached out to him at this stage because when we do go through inspection, I want to have a contractor on site to give me basically live estimates on what's found at the property. And given that the property manager, has 2,000 units in the area, it lends me to believe that he also has a team of contractors that he works with, probably gets reduced prices, probably gets favorable timing on his projects that he could, or that I could use, and get projects done a little quicker. And he agreed to it. He said, let me know when the inspection's scheduled. I usually charge $70 an hour for just general man hours. And we can get a contractor out there with the inspector, and they can all go through it together. So what I'll get at the end of the inspection is a obviously inspector's report, and that'll be a general inspection of the duplex. And I did a little add-on, which is inspecting the plumbing and piping all the way to where it connects to the city piping. Given the fact that it's extremely old property, it doesn't hurt to know exactly what's going on down there. And the construction technology back then wasn't as good as it is now, so you can't expect things to have lasted for 100 years. So I'm gonna it costs $250 extra to get that inspection as well. So I added that to the list, and so I'll get those reports, as well as a full estimate of what it would take to bring the property up to what it needs to be. And from there, I'll be able to pick and choose which parts I want to fix now, what I want to fix later, and what I don't think is necessary because it's either cosmetic or it costs too much from what return it'll bring back or whatever. And just having that information on the front end not only gives me an idea of whether I actually want to go through with a purchase or not, but also gives me the opportunity to sort of schedule out, and not only schedule out the work, but schedule out the cost of the work over the course of the next year or 18 months or however long it takes. So the black part of what's written down here is what I've already done. And the green part is what needs to get done to get to close. So next would be, work with the inspector to identify the time of the week for the inspection. We're shooting for Thursday, but we still haven't finalized. And then, like I said before, the property manager is going to have one of the contractors go out with the inspector. Number 10 is just what I explained before, complete the inspection and get the estimates simultaneously so that I can schedule out the work if necessary. The next is to get the trailing 12 months operating expenses from the seller, the trailing 12 months rent roll from the seller, and any recent structural work that they've done, as well as the current lease. And more often than not, especially at our level, the seller isn't going to have all this information, but you want to request all of it, because the absence of any of these things is a negotiating tool where I say, okay, you don't even know what you spent on CapEx for the last 12 months. So I'm going to have to assume that nothing was spent. Therefore, I'm going to have to bake that into my final offer. Or, the leases are month to month. So that means that the revenue is not necessarily guaranteed. Okay, I have to figure that in as well, and so on and so forth. And the operating expenses, if they do have it, great. It gives you an idea of what it's really going to cost you, the actuals, as opposed to the estimates that would go in with. And if they don't have it, again, another negotiating tool. Next is to schedule the appraisal, just to get an idea of the appraised value of the property, because for the lender, they're most likely gonna they're gonna give you or they're gonna let you loan against, so get an LTV from the higher of whatever the list cost is, what you agreed to pay for it, or the appraisal. So in a scenario when, say, okay, I offered 117,000 for the property, but it appraises for 130, then I have the opportunity to get either better terms because my loan to value is lower, or get a loan for 80% of the appraised value and come out of pocket less than the 20% needed to close on the property, because I've already agreed to buy it for 117. If it appraises for 130, then I can get a loan against the 130. So if you put some numbers to it, 80% of 130 is $104,000. So technically I'd be able to get a loan for $104,000 and the list price is still 117. So I'd only have to come out of pocket for the down payment $13,000 instead of the 23 or 24 that I have listed. So obviously that's one way to go, or you can just get a lower LTV. That's a decision you can make when you get to that point. But only having to come out of pocket less gives you more for CapEx if needed, and also makes your cash on cash return much higher on an annual basis. So once that's done, again, work with the lender using the appraised value, and agree on terms. And from all the inspection and rent roll underwriting, you go back to the seller's agent and you negotiate with the seller for deferred maintenance costs or anything like that. And then once you've hit that stage, you're pretty much at the end, and you get to the point where you're finalizing your loan and preparing to close and take ownership of the property. And that's pretty much it.
This checklist is pretty awesome. Definitely got to put that in the drive. You mentioned getting 80% of the appraised value. So this commercial lender is would let you do that. I've always only seen 80% of your purchase price or appraisal, whichever is lower. But I haven't seen where they'll loan 80% of the appraisal. That's pretty dope if you found that.
Every lender is different. And every package is basically dependent on the brokers, investors, and their how comfortable they are with risk. I'm sure, and that was a very extreme example where it appraises for what was it, $13,000 more than the list price. But it's happened in the past, and I'll try to find here. Let me see if I can find the actual flyer for the loan product from the lender. We can even go. I think it'll be useful to go through together. Brandon.
One thing I'll point out about this checklist, as someone who's made purchases but didn't have a checklist like this. Point number 14, if needed, right? You have all this information as additional, areas of negotiation, right? Like, deferred maintenance, and like if they don't have all of their, documents together, right? Like that's a really, really great point. I would almost say you have to make sure in your offer that you put in some language that says, that allows for that. Because I entered into escrow before, and in here in Los Angeles, and I had a caveat that said, as is. So like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I probably could have, it would have been worthwhile for me to like pay, let's say like another $5,000.
Yeah.
But like have that out of there, because if I do find something, like I would want to go back to the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your point 14, definitely important. And then I would say like you said, if you're going to miss out on a property for, and again, I get it, money is money and it's valuable. You don't want to be wasteful, but like in the grand scheme of things, when you're purchasing a property, an investment property, the $5,000 or the $3,000 or whatever, along the list price,
mm-hmm.
That's a huge negotiation piece that can like leave the door open for a lot of other things. Like you said, you wouldn't want to miss out on a great opportunity over $3,000. I wouldn't want to lock myself in from like being able to negotiate during the inspection period, because you're going to find stuff, right? Like the seller's agent's job is to make the house or the property look as perfect as possible, right? And then once you see it and you get a chance to look at it yourself in depth, right, you're going to find all the other things. So that's a lesson learned for me. And like, this checklist is it's always helpful to have something to go against, because there's so many moving pieces in these transactions. You're bound to forget something. And that was one thing that like, they put that in their counter, and I just like signed because I liked the price that we agreed to. But, I should have been a bit more adamant of like, not agreeing to it as is, right? Like,
yeah,
that takes all of the, I just weaken my negotiating position, right? And I have to, like,
It
whatever I
reduces
find,
your risk.
for sure. You know what I mean? It puts me in a position to either like take it as is or walk away. When, you know, in life, you want to keep your options open as often as, you know, as long as possible, before you have to make a decision, right? Like I took myself from having 3 choices, which is buy it as is, walk away, or renegotiate, to down to 2, right?
Yeah.
It still makes sense, you know, still working through the process, but definitely something like, you know, this is a great reminder of like, yeah, next time you're in that situation, you know, absolutely put up a fight, right? Before agreeing to it as is, you know what I mean? That's definitely a great point.
And like, at least one of the mindsets I like to try to keep, especially during the contract period, is that, look, I have no fear of you know, walking away from a property if I'm not comfortable with it. So yeah, I'm gonna put like $1,000 down as earnest money. If I go into the property and I find like, you know, $10,000-$15,000 of work that is I need to do, you know, next month, and they don't want to negotiate down, or are, you know, really hard on the number, like, no, I need 117 and that's it. I'll cut my losses. Yeah, I lost $1,000, but I don't want to deal with the headache of, you know, being extremely worried and having to come out of pocket, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars, for a property that is no longer going to hit the numbers that I predicted it would. So the earnest money, yeah, it hurts to lose it, but that's, you know, you stroke a check and you move on with your life, as opposed to having, you know, a giant albatross around your neck, especially at a distance where you're, you know, you're relying on people that you effectively just met, or, you know, people that you haven't built that much of a rapport with. Like, it can get real slippery. So if you don't feel comfortable with it, just move on, and there's plenty of other deals to be had. So looking at, yeah, this is the flyer that the lender recently sent out to me. And yeah, so this is that leverage piece where it says, on a purchase, up to 8% of as is value or loan to cost. So that the loan to cost is just, you know, obviously what you're paying for it, and the as is value is that appraisal. So it sounds, I mean, it's worded as if they're giving you the choice, and obviously it's deal dependent. Once you submit an actual deal with, you know, whatever numbers are there, if there is enough pro forma rents to cover your debt, with a commercial lender, they tend to, especially a commercial lender that has specific investors that they can get on the phone and say, hey, look, I have this property. It appraised for much more than we're offering on it, but the rents will more than cover, you know, the mortgage on it. Can I approve this loan? If their underwriters say it's fine, then they'll work with you on it. Again, the example I gave was extreme, but it's possible. And that's again another pro with these commercial lenders, against the conventional lenders. There is a lot more wiggle room when in the underwriting period, because there isn't, you know, hard and fast boxes they have to check to allow for something to move to the next level. You're basically having a conversation with their underwriting team and their investor. So that's pretty much it in terms of the process. Any more questions or any comments that we can discuss?
That was great. Please put all this information in the sheets or in our shared doc.
Oh yeah, I'll save. I wrote this up this morning. I'll save it to the what you call it, the Google Drive. Let's see that.
Talk more about the relationship. So you said that you got your relationship from the last refi, and
Yeah.
basically said it though, right? So you found other people who are slightly farther in the process than you are in the same particular area, which is that they're out of state investing in the region you're investing in. And then you ask them, hey, what did you do? And they led you basically.
Yeah.
And then you basically chronicled from there and built the relationship. So like, I think that's very important to highlight, and to be proactive about thinking through how it is that you build the relationship. Because like in the real estate, I mean, as you understand, there's the deal, there's the money, and then there's the people. So, and the system. So being able to sort of sniff out the right people to build the flywheel to get it going. I think that's like probably to me the most powerful thing that you did, because all the other things, there's a million ways to do those things, but to figure out for yourself the steps for some place where you're not even from there, and you figure out how to get the insights you need so that you can put your best foot and your best dollar forward. But yeah, I think that's really good.
I mean, if you really boil down the actions that I take, none of them required getting up from the seat that I'm in right now, right? Like all I did was go on online forums, reach out to people, email, call, double check, everything was on the phone, everything was on a computer. I didn't have to take a single step to do any of the things that I did, like physical step with my feet. Like I didn't have to do any of that. I think the biggest, the most important thing I would say needs to be done is, talk to as many people as you can, get opinions from experts in the area, as well as people that have gone through exactly what you are about to go through, and then double check those opinions versus somebody else. For instance, like about the area of the property, I checked with the real estate agent, and then I checked with the property manager. About like what are some of the property manager itself. I checked with the real estate agent, and then I went on Bigger Pockets and searched this person and people that have worked with them before, and sort of got indirect reviews that way. So like, just talk to as many people as you can, explain what you're trying to do, and then from there double check with others to confirm. But once you've met somebody that has proven themselves as trustworthy, you trust them until they prove themselves as not trustworthy. Because if you don't sort of take a few leaps of faith here and there, it's going to be difficult to get farther along in the process.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I might have missed this earlier. So we saw that even with conservative numbers, the property still cash flows pretty well.
Yeah.
Is it primarily cash flow driven, or does this particular market, when you did your market analysis, is there an expectation of like any sort of appreciation, or is it purely like, hey, this is going to provide good cash flow that I can use for other things?
I would say it's primarily cash flow. I'm not necessarily expecting much in the way of appreciation, or like meaningful appreciation. I definitely expect the property to retain its value. And
Sure.
honestly, it's in an area of Cleveland that if the whole MSA appreciates, this is one of the areas that's going to see some of that appreciation, in that it's adjacent to the suburbs, but not yet quite in the suburbs. So if things go well in the area, the one of the bigger industries in Cleveland is the healthcare industry, and it's in proximity to hospitals. So if more hospitals are built or are growing, then maybe there's going to be appreciation. But I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket for this particular deal. And with the rents where they are, and the property value where it is, the cash flow, if I do end up getting 23% return, levered return without any capex or anything like that. So say I end up getting 20% return, for 5 years. Well, then I've made all my down payment back. So, and that's if there's no appreciation at all. So in that scenario, in 5 years, I would be able to refinance and pull out, my money, or, whatever money is left, or not refinance at all, and have made back the money that I invested in the property in 5 years. So that's good enough for me, because that earned capital will go to the next property and hopefully balloon over time. But just to answer your question, this is definitely more of a cash flow play than an appreciation play.
Gotcha. You actually mentioned in that answer something that, again, I think I saw it in the pro forma, but I think it bears
Let me pull that back up again.
relevance to talk through. So, again, this is a duplex, which qualifies for conventional, but because, we're out of state, we want to be flexible. Those commercial loan products might make more sense for us, right? they're relationship driven. You can close quickly. They don't care about like whatever debt you have personally. They care about the deal itself. What I found is it's not as common to find like 30-year mortgages on the commercial lending side. Like sometimes it'll be like, it might be like a 10-year mortgage amortized over 30, but the whole thing's due in 10, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're kind of expected to refinance at that point. Can you tell?
Yeah.
Is this a 30-year fully amortized mortgage, or is it 10-year amortized over 30? Can you give us a little details about that?
Yeah, so there are options, right? So like here, like the terms here, 30-year loans, and then there's a prepayment penalty for up to 5 years. So it can be, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, and what determines that is your interest rate. So if the prepayment penalty is shorter, then the interest rate will go up a little bit to sort of, balance that out from the investor side. The amortization options here are 30-year fixed. So I guess that is an option here. Or you can do hybrids. You can be 3x1, 5x1, 7x1, and even interest only. But I'm guessing that's probably for bigger deals,
Right?
because interest only is not going to pay much to the investor if it's a smaller deal. I actually haven't got to that discussion yet with the lender, but that's definitely something I can update the group on, just so we can even walk through that process. But to answer your question, yeah, you can do a 30-year, conventional style mortgage, or you can do a short term, a fixed rate, and then it'll transfer to a variable rate, and you can refinance in the future. Which, I mean, I may consider doing that because, I mean, from economic analysis I do for work, I don't see interest rates going up anytime within the next 4 to 6 years. So with that being the case, and the Federal Reserve printing trillions of dollars, assets are going to go up in value, and I got a good shot, even in a non-appreciation market, of having a more valuable asset in 3 to 5 years. So to answer your question, though, this one does allow for a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Gotcha. Cool.
That's it.
I think just like a quick one. I don't know
Yeah.
if we discussed that last time when we were going over all these specific regions, but why is everybody going to Cleveland, Ohio again? Is it just because it's like, cheaper prices, or what's driving people that way?
By going, do you mean like investors going to invest there, or people moving
That's
there?
correct, but both, yeah.
I think investors are going to invest there because of the price points. You can find a decent investment in that $80,000 to $150,000 range. That's not in like a bad area that, it can cash flow for you, and it's a good way to start your investment journey as an investor. And again, the reason why those price points are the way they are is because of the property taxes in the area. They're, abnormally high, where they're, anywhere from 2 to 4%, which is, I don't know if there's any other market that's that high. So you get hit there, but you're at least allowed to enter the game. Like you can at least start playing. And ultimately, when you do build more, like when I do build more capital, I plan to go to other markets that are more appreciation friendly, and are a little more versatile. But for a newbie investor, or someone that's getting their second or third property or something like that, it's a good sandbox to play in until you can jump in with the big boys.
Makes sense.
And then for migration, I think Cleveland, and we might have discussed this before, but I'm not sure. I think Cleveland has actually a negative net migration, where more people are leaving than coming. But with that said, at this property size, I don't put as much weight into that metric, because like if I was going to buy like a 400 unit property, then net migration has to be on my side, because I need to fill 400 units. I'm buying a duplex. I only need to find 2 families. And even if, the net migration is negative 4 or 5%, I still got a good shot. If I put out a good product that's, clean and, serviceable, I'll be able to find people to rent there. It's not a drastically dying city. It's just sort of stagnating, which, can turn either way in the near future, but I wouldn't necessarily be worried about with only 2 units.
That's a good point. Cool.
And I think the other thing to consider with migration is like, it might not be, there's certain neighborhoods that where people are leaving more than others. So you might not have like the data available to say, okay, well, like, yeah, Cleveland as a whole is losing population, but it's really like, you know, East Cleveland or it's really downtown, like it's this certain place. But so that also factors into it as well, right? Like, and that's where having that local expert is really helpful of saying, hey, this is a good neighborhood. Yes, overall Cleveland's, you know, net migration is negative, but like this neighborhood's fine, right? People are always going to need to live in this little sweet spot.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to consider.
Cool.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Peace.